Hey, Crips and Corks podcast. It's me, Cher, coming to you on the Cameo. Your friends DJ and Paul asked me to come and tell you it's Cher, bitch.
Gonna be a Mamma Mia 3. Whoa!
Chaz, get ready.
Mama's gonna make it big, Chaz.
Do you believe I can't.
Do you believe in life after love?
And welcome back to another episode of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host,
Paul, as usual.
Paul, how are you?
I am doing great. Things are going very well for me, and I have a little sentiment that is making the summer really amazing, really. Do you think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Yes.
We're living that brat summer. We fell out of that coconut tree, bitch.
But we are still existing in the context of all that came before us.
Get into it.
Because Kamala Harris is now the Democratic Party's nominee.
Wait, is it official? Like, did they
Well,
select her?
by the time this comes out,
Okay.
it better be, or else I'm gonna eat my hat.
Right. Get into Kamala, honestly. I'm excited. Yeah, and we're having a brat summer on top of it. Like, things were so depressing before Joe stepped down, but now that he's stepped down, things are good again. I feel like I can, breathe fully again.
You know what? I have always liked Joe Biden.
Yeah, I like him
honestly.
too. Yeah.
But I have to say that him stepping down for the good of the nation has probably cemented his status as one of the greatest of America's presidents of all time.
I agree. He really did what was right for this country, and I hope he has an amazing retirement and gets to spend it around family and having a good-ass time.
And Joe, I wish you all the chocolate chip ice cream in the world.
Yeah, get into that.
Nobody talks about Joe Biden liking ice cream anymore. That's like 50% of the reason why I voted for him in 2020.
Oh my gosh, I love that for you. Oh my gosh, and plus, okay, we have to talk a little bit about Brat Summer, Charlie XCX. We're living that, we're bumping that, we're getting in the gig, we're partying. Well, honestly, I haven't been partying too much lately. I've been real boring. I've been living my grandma fantasy lately.
Well, we just went out this week and we got a little drunk.
We did. We got a little tipsy.
Definitely not what we used to do. I mean, we were home by midnight 30?
Yeah.
Turkey sandwiches.
Okay, those turkey sandwiches were good,
They really
girl.
hit the spot.
We're about to have some more after this, girl. We're about to have some... Honestly, get into a turkey sandwich. If you haven't had a turkey sandwich in a while, get into that.
What you know about ham sliders?
Get yourself a turkey sandwich. Go to the good old market and get yourself a turkey sandwich.
I think what you know about a ham slider has to be a t-shirt of ours.
What you know about that ham slider?
What episode was that where you said that, and then the next episode we had to eat a ham slider?
It was the one before Monte Cristo, I think. Whatever we did before that.
I know it was before Monte Cristo.
Girl,
it was a while before Monte Cristo.
It all just blends together now. Honestly,
we do not have an assistant to look this up and send us a discreet message. This is a very low budget investigation. I forgot where I was going. It's been a long week, Paul.
It has. But speaking of low budget, how was your vacation?
Really good. I think I completely ruined my diet.
And that's okay, you know?
But that's what vacations are for.
Exactly.
Until, 2 days in, we went to this amazing Italian restaurant. Now that we're back, I can say that we were in Bethany Beach, Delaware.
Okay.
And we went to this amazing Italian restaurant called DeFebo's. I think DeFebo's, maybe. But
that sounds really good.
Oh, it was so good. But what was really stellar was the desserts.
Ooh.
Okay. We got this huge slice of chocolate cake that was to die for, and a warm apple crumble a la mode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this restaurant has a market across the street from it, where it's the same bakery, the same recipes.
Mm-hmm.
And me, my brother, and my cousin would go to a coffee shop a little further down the road. And so on the way back, every day after that, we would stop at the market to get desserts. And when I say we would get desserts, not a single one of us left there without an empty box every single day we were there.
Get into that. See, that's how you gotta do it on vacation. You gotta get up in your desserts. You gotta eat everything you can eat at home.
Yes.
That sounds so fun.
I did not drink as much wine as I would have liked to, but oh well.
That's okay. That's okay. That's why we have the pod, to drink wine. But also, if you want to hear more about our thoughts on vacations, go watch Uncorked. It's out now.
It's been out. I mean, we're, third week of August?
This will be the second week of August, so it'll be out for 2 weeks. So if you haven't watched Uncorked yet, where we talk about our vacations, go watch freaking Uncorked episode 6.
I could have swore we were farther along in August. Can you tell we record these ahead of time?
Right. It's not even August 1st yet when we're recording this.
No,
it's
because
August
that's your birthday.
Yes.
Did you say it's August Eve?
August Eve.
Eve. All Hallows Eve.
It's almost Taylor Swift's month. Because she has a song and it goes, oh shit. It's actually called August. I'm pretty sure it's on Folklore. She says, I'm not going to sing it for y'all. We'll get there later.
Enough singing.
Let me get a few drinks in me, but before we can drink...
we have a Hot Guy of the Month segment.
Yes. We'll drink him up.
So, we all know how fun I think Glenn Powell is.
Yes.
He is one cutie patootie.
Girl, we're not in elementary school. He's hot as fuck.
But just as cute as him is the dog he adopted while filming Twisters.
Oh, okay. Tell me about this dog. About this pooch.
This came to the attention when Glenn Powell took as his date to the premiere of Twisters his dog Brisket.
He took it to the premiere of the movie?
Yes.
Oh, girl.
So he adopted Brisket in July of 2023. Playfully referred to Brisket as 1.5 pounds of raw power. Brisket has made frequent appearances on Powell's Instagram account, and Glenn has really stepped into being a dog dad. He did this after he went through a breakup, and he just was sitting in a cafe in Enid, Oklahoma, and he said, quote, "You know what? I needed to be a dog dad," and he is called Brisket. The greatest addition to my life ever.
That's actually really sweet. That's really cute.
And so
I love puppies.
There's nothing I want more in life than a man who is so in love with his little puppy, but who could literally strangle me with his biceps if he wanted to.
Yes, I'm here for that. We love a man with a soft side.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those tweets where it's like, so it's a twink, right?
Yeah.
A small twink, and then a guy with muscles, and the guy with the muscles wraps his arm around the twink's head, and they call it twink jail. And I want to be in twink jail.
Yeah, it's kind of like that TikTok I sent you yesterday with that guy who was like holding a Smurf doll by the throat, and I said, is it bad that I want him to hold me by the throat like he's holding a Smurf doll?
Well, he wasn't exactly muscular. He was more of a twink himself.
He was.
Girl,
that was off the wall for me.
And that's okay. You know, at this point, if you've watched us this far, you shouldn't be surprised by off-the-wall things. It's just what we're doing.
Off the wall, sometimes on the wall, sometimes on the floor, sometimes on the bathtub.
Sometimes under the bed.
Sometimes on the ceiling, but that's only when it's been a couple days.
Girl, not on the ceiling.
Oh, you ready to drink?
Yeah, I need a drink. It's been a long day. Let's get into it. What are we drinking, DJ?
So, today, we're doing one of America's favorite, one of the South's best. We're drinking Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 brand Tennessee Sour Mash Whiskey in Diet Coke.
Good old-fashioned Jack and Coke.
Well, Coke.
Diet Coke, because we're Diet Coke stans. And honestly, if you're not drinking Diet Coke at this point in your life, grow up.
In our skull mugs. Thank you, Kathy.
Yes. Wait, so they don't get a pop, they don't get a bottle. What do they get again?
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Oh, Jesus. I made that strong by
Yeah, you
accident.
did. Thank God you did.
Oh my God, that's strong.
You know what? This story calls for a strong pour of Tennessee whiskey.
Oh, okay. Why?
Well, Paul, let me tell you a story.
Period. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Richard Williams Bell wrote, "Whether it was witchery, such as afflicted people in past centuries and the darker ages, whether some gifted fiend of hellish nature practicing sorcery for selfish enjoyment, or some more modern science akin to that of mesmerism, or some hobgoblin native to the wilds of the country, or a disembodied soul shut out of heaven, or an evil spirit like those Paul drove out of the man into the swine, setting them mad, or a demon let loose from hell, I am unable to decide, nor has anyone yet divined its nature or cause for appearing. And I trust this description of the monster in all forms and shapes, and of many tongues, will lead experts who may come with a wiser generation to a correct conclusion and satisfactory explanation." Richard Williams Bell was the descendant of a family afflicted by a very particular entity who was America's first ghost story and first poltergeist, the Bell Witch.
Ooh. Not to be confused with the doorbell witch. Ding dong!
Ditch.
Ding dong!
Am I supposed to say who's there?
No, I just thought that was fun. I've been thinking about that for a couple days and I thought it was funny.
Oh my God.
So I had to lay it on the kids. So every so often I'll just say ding dong, just ignore it.
Okay.
And every time I do that, think about the doorbell witch and what she might do to you.
I will. Well, you want to say something? You took a deep breath in.
No, I have heard of the Bell Witch, but I don't know anything about it. I'm actually excited. I hope this is a horrifying story. And you said his name was Richard?
Richard Williams Bell wrote that quote.
Richard Williams Bell. Okay, okay, period.
So this story does center on the Bell family. They lived on a 328-acre farm along the Red River in eastern Tennessee, and the land that they lived on is today part of Adams and Robertson counties.
Okay.
The family consisted of John and Lucy Bell. John had been a successful farmer in North Carolina before moving the family to Tennessee in the winter of 1804 to 1805.
Could you imagine moving in the winter in 1804?
Well, they had to because they had to be settled in time for planting season.
Either way, it'd be cold as shit and it would
But
be
this is the
miserable.
South. This is the South. This is North Carolina and Tennessee.
You can't tell me it's still not cold.
I'm sure it's cold, but it's the South. We're probably going to get a lot of hate mail from the South it gets cold.
Probably. And I don't care. Send us whatever you want.
But do you know what's harder than moving in the winter? Having 9 children.
They moved 9 children in the winter?
Well, no, they moved 6 children, and then after they settled in Tennessee, they had 3 more.
Oh, gee, that's too many kids. I'd stop after the 3rd.
Their children, in order, were Jesse, John Jr., Drury, Benjamin, Esther, Zadok, Elizabeth, also called Betsy, Richard, and Joel.
Get into Zadok, okay? Zadok's an Elon Musk name.
It's a biblical name.
You can't tell me Elon Musk wouldn't name one of those little kids Zadok.
Elon Musk is canceled for being a
Oh
trans
yeah,
dog.
because he's dead naming his kid? Fuck him.
The fact that he called his trans kid dead.
Right. Yeah, Elon Musk sucks. You're canceled. Get out of here, loser.
We don't want to be on Amazon podcasts.
We don't need you, loser. Go ahead.
Please don't cancel my Prime membership. I like getting things in 2 days.
Traitor.
I don't have to support Elon Musk. Wait.
That's Bezos! That's not even Elon Musk!
I know, we realized that at the
Stupid
same time.
bitch. I hate it here.
Whoops.
We're gonna get killed. No.
Well, I also do not drive a Tesla.
Neither do I.
And that's not because I can't afford a Tesla.
It's because
I'm boycotting them. And I can't afford them.
And they're ugly.
And they're ugly. Oh my god, the space trucks.
Ew, yeah, the space trucks are ugly as shit, but I need to know about the Bell Witch. I'm so sorry.
Well, John and Lucy were very successful planters, and they became really prominent members of their community. John was actually named an elder of the Red River Baptist Church very quickly after they settled. And they lived a quiet, normal, and prosperous life until 1816.
When the Declaration of Independence was signed. That's so weird.
That was a long time ago.
Wait, like 1815, period. I was like a year off.
It was 1776. They wrote a whole musical about it.
Oh, right, because they based it off the Hamilton musical. Mm-hmm. They said 1776, New York City. Pardon me, I'm Aaron Burr, sir. But I'll stop there so I don't get copyrighted, sir.
It all started when John Sr. was checking on the planting, and he took along his rifle to shoot some rabbits or ducks for his family's dinner. Oh, this is a good point to do the trigger warnings I forgot. There are some instances of animal violence and mentions of slavery, along with child abuse.
Okay.
So he took his rifle to shoot rabbits or ducks for his family's dinner along the way. As he was walking, he was startled to see a large creature step out of the rows of corn in front of him. He was more startled to take in its appearance, that of a large black dog with the head of a rabbit.
Okay, I'm picturing that right now, and that sounds interesting. I don't even know what... So it's a really big dog with the head of a rabbit.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds crazy. And that's supposed to be the witch?
So, he started to walk towards it, wondering what it was, and this creature just sat in the path staring at him, like, intelligently. Like, it saw him, and it knew he saw it, and it was sitting there on purpose.
Okay.
And so, John Sr. lifted his rifle and fired off several shots to no effect on the creature. And after he fired the last shot, the creature just disappeared.
It disappeared. Okay, so he fired at the dog. Dog disappears.
Rabbit.
Dog rabbit. I wonder.
Like, it didn't, like, run off. Like, it was sitting in the middle of the path, and the last shot was fired, and it just went...
I was trying to think of a name, like a dog bit. I was trying to combine the two
dog
names,
bit.
but it wasn't clicking in my brain. That's why I paused and gave that look. I was also trying to look up, because I know there is a goddess in the Wiccan religion that's associated with black dogs. I think it's Diana. But there is a Wiccan goddess associated with black dogs.
Black dogs have a very long history and mythos behind them, which we're not going to get to in this episode.
Right.
But you know what? This was still really new country. Not a lot of people lived on the other side of the Appalachians yet. So he thought maybe it's a new creature, didn't think much of it. Continued on his way, went home, didn't think any more about it.
Mm-hmm.
That is, until during dinner came the noise of pounding on all the walls and roof of the house simultaneously. John Sr. and his sons jumped up and ran outside to catch the culprits, but found no one.
I have to turn the fridge off.
Come on, Paul, in the middle of my story.
Well, we want the audio to be good, so I gotta turn off the fridge. That was a little inside scoop for the YouTube people. We have to turn off my fridge when we record because it's too fucking loud.
Our microphones are too powerful. I'll just start back from the beginning of that.
Okay.
So during dinner, the family was startled by the sound of knocking on all the walls of the house and the roof simultaneously. John Sr. and his sons jumped up and ran outside to catch the culprits and found no one there. And it's not like they live in in wide open spaces, But their house is on a farm, so there's not really a lot of places to hide. It wasn't like there was a batch of trees that somebody could run into and hide.
Right. Okay. That's weird.
This same thing would happen with more frequency and more force as time went on.
It's the doorbell witch. She said, ding dong! Sorry. I didn't think it would be that loud.
Here's you got the great Paul. Within days, other members of the Bell family began to see inexplicable things. Drury approached an unfamiliar bird which he said looked like a huge turkey, which took off as he approached and showed itself to actually be a different kind of bird of extraordinary size. Now, if you've ever seen a turkey, those things are huge to begin with.
It's a pretty big bird, yeah.
So the fact that he described it as a huge turkey means that it was pretty big.
It was a big bird, girl. Okay.
Daughter Betsy saw a woman in a green dress walking one of the orchards, and when she spoke to the woman looked at her and vanished. A few days later, Betsy saw that same woman hanging by the neck from an oak tree outside the house.
That's a ghost. That's a residual haunting, ma'am. That's crazy. I would be spooked.
Dean, one of the slaves on the farm, also reported being followed by a large black dog while walking home in the evenings.
Okay, if I was being followed by a large black dog on the way home, I would just think it was cute. I'd be like, oh my gosh, come on, puppy, let's go.
Oh my god.
You already know me.
But soon, the phenomenon moved into the house. It began with the same knocking, but on the inside walls and doors of the house.
I wonder how it got invited in, or maybe it was already in. Who knows?
Then, at night, the children started to complain of the sound of rats gnawing on their beds, and the sound of invisible dogs fighting, and chains being dragged across the floor. Then, the children started to complain that the sheets were being ripped off of them at night, and the pillows were being pulled from under their head and thrown across the room.
Wait, what was being thrown? Pillows?
Pillows.
See, that's how it starts. Pretty soon, they'll be thrown across the room.
It was also around this time that John Sr. began to experience mouth paralysis and began to struggle to eat and drink.
That's just diabetes.
That's not diabetes, though. Maybe a stroke, but not diabetes.
What if he did have a stroke and they okay, you can't explain the other stuff that's happening, but the paralysis, that could be attributed to other things. Like, maybe he even got Lyme disease because they're out in nature and things, I imagine.
Maybe. But shortly after this, somebody in the family, probably one of the kids, began to communicate with the entity making the noise. This was done by asking simple questions and asking for a response with a knock or two to indicate the answer. Sort of like, are you in the room? Knock yes for one, knock twice for no.
Yeah. It's giving was it Jacob and Satori who Sam and Colby did the conjure?
No, they were the taps on the floor that could spell out. Yeah. This is more like the yes or no.
But it's still like the tap.
A little bit. You hear this a lot in poltergeist stories where it's like knock once for yes, knock twice for no.
Right. It's easier than going through the whole alphabet, girl.
Or a lot of investigators will be like flash the light twice for yes, once for no.
Oh yeah.
Like that.
That sort of thing.
After a few months, the knocks were accompanied by a low, intelligible murmuring, which somebody eventually said sounded like a weak old woman singing hymns.
Okay, that would actually be really creepy. I would not appreciate that. That would be creepy.
As the entity began to grow in strength, it began to target Betsy and subjected her to beatings, slaps, and the pulling of her hair relentlessly. John Sr. had vowed to remain silent about their, quote, family trouble, unquote, but soon turned to his and Lucy's neighbors and best friends, James and Jane Johnston. James and Jane were skeptical of the stories the Bells told them, but agreed to come and spend the night to see for themselves. All was quiet, and the Johnstons figured it had all been a joke, and the Bells thought the entity was quieted by the newcomers. They all went to bed, and the entity revealed itself to James and Jane. It ripped the sheets off of their bed and slapped James hard across the face.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, it is funny because when I was taking stage combat and we were learning how to do slaps, my professor was... And, like, everyone did slaps because they're so easy to mimic on stage.
Yeah.
And she was like, you can't do a slap for every hit because, honestly, slaps are really insulting because it's kind of dismissive.
Right.
So James leapt out of bed and shouted, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?"
"In the name of the moon, I will punish you."
The next morning, over breakfast, the Johnstons and Bells were discussing the previous night's occurrences. James, a devout Christian, told John it was, quote, "an evil spirit, the kind the Bible talks about," unquote. As they talked, a disembodied voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere and said, "I am a spirit. I was once happy, but have been disturbed."
I wonder what disturbed her.
I don't know, but I kind of got goosebumps. Like, could you imagine, like, sitting in a room talking and suddenly you hear a voice from everywhere and nowhere say that?
That would be spooky. Like, it sounds kind of like hokey and funny now, but I imagine if I was actually there and I actually experienced something like that, I'd be like, oh, fuck.
Shit.
That's not tea. But also, it is... Could you imagine someone ripping the bedsheet off you and slapping you in the face? It sounds like something, like a prank.
That sounds like a good night at Club Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh.
You really didn't see that coming, did you?
Also, it sounds like something you would do to your sibling when you were a kid. Like,
I think that is something I did do to my sibling growing up.
Right, they're being a little too peaceful in there, so you gotta go disturb them a little bit.
Me and my brother, we wouldn't have fistfights very often. We would just slap each other back and forth.
Oh, me and my brother would fight. We would wrestle. We would fight. And, yeah.
So, what exactly was this entity? The Bells and visitors often asked the entity what it was, and it gave many conflicting answers. At one point, it claimed to be the spirit of a Native American who was buried nearby, whose grave was disturbed, and she was haunting the Bells because one of her teeth had fallen beneath the house. A few years prior to this, a burial mound had been dug up and Drury Bell had brought a jawbone from one of the skeletons into the house before John Sr. sent him to take it back. At another time, it claimed to be the ghost of an immigrant who had hidden a large treasure nearby and died before being able to reclaim it and wanted Betsy Bell to have it. She told John Sr. and a group of men where it was and instructed them to dig a hole 6 feet across, 6 feet wide, and 6 feet deep. But when they did, they found nothing. Upon returning to the house, the entity began to cackle and mock them with what they had talked about during the day. So, like...
Bitch, they have them out there digging holes in the garden, bitch.
No, she, like, sent them miles away.
Oh, I'd be...
And they came back, and she's like, "You were telling jokes!"
You stupid bitch, you went and dug a hole. Bitch, I'd be so sick if I went and spent all that energy to go dig this stupid goddamn hole for some... I'd be pissed. I'd be sick, girl.
But the answer that has stuck the most was the claim that it was nothing more than old Kate Batts' witch. Now, the term witch here doesn't actually refer to a witch like we think of. It refers to a witch's spirit. So the entity was not claiming to be Kate Batts herself, but the spirit that Kate Batts would have conjured or summoned to do her witchly bidding.
Oh, okay.
So kind of like a familiar.
Okay, interesting.
Now, Kate Batts was a local woman who ran her and her invalid husband's farm herself and was considered to be fairly eccentric by her neighbors. She was in the habit of pretending to be a great lady of society and being descended from the English gentry. And to sort of reinforce this, she would either make up words or use words incorrectly to try and sound fancier than she was.
Oh my god. And all of a sudden, you're a witch! You make up a word or two and you're a witch!
Well, no, nobody in the town really claimed she was a witch. This ghost just said, I'm old Kate Batts' witch spirit.
Bitch, that's crazy. Why are they gonna throw good old Kate under the bus?
Well, to point out how eccentric Kate was, during one Sunday service, a local man who was known to sin a lot burst from the church and cried that he wanted salvation. So they took him up to the altar, and he gets down on his hands and knees, and they're praying over him, when Kate Batts, who is a fairly large woman, comes storming up the aisle, pushing people out of the way, and sitting on the man, pinning him to the ground. And she starts screaming at him with scriptures, with all these words incorrectly, and speaking in tongues. And the entire congregation had to leave the church, was laughing so hard at her.
That sounds crazy. That sounds like some evangelical type shit, okay?
It really was, because could you imagine, like, if I sat on you and just, in the name of the Lord, blah, blah, blah,
Homegirl was just an evangelical ahead of her time, and now
She was just feeling her oats.
Right, she was just an evangelical ahead of her time. Get into that. Get into Kate.
Now, the entity responded very gladly to the name Kate, and the name stuck. So for the rest of the story, I'm going to refer to the entity known as the Bell Witch exclusively as Kate.
Kate. Okay, period.
Now that Kate had found her voice, she was gonna make herself heard.
You go, girl!
She would shout and curse at old Jack, or Jack Sr., calling him a wicked, despicable, evil man. But on the flip side, she heaped praise upon old Luce, or dear Lucy, whom she called, quote, the most perfect woman to walk the earth.
Oh, she had a little girl crush.
At one time, when Lucy was ill with a lung infection, Kate even manifested fresh oranges, grapes, and hazelnuts out of thin air to help her recovery.
Okay, I would need to see that in person before I believe that shit. I would need to see that in person, okay?
Kate was also very respectful to John Jr. and would have long discussions with him. She proved herself to be extremely intelligent and could quote the entire Bible and argue theology, often getting trained pastors and theologians to rethink their stances.
Wait, who was doing this?
Kate, the
ghost?
witch. Like
the witch?
Yes, because like ministers would come to investigate, and she'd just start talking about the Bible with them like it was nothing.
Wait, are we talking about the thing that's haunting the bells?
Yes, the entity.
So people are just coming into their home and having full-on conversations with this unseen entity.
Yeah, like they would walk in the house and they'd be like, "Are you here?" And she'd be like, "I'm here." And they'd be like, "What do you think of Sodom and Gomorrah?" "I think that it's not actually about anal sex. I think it's about rape." She also had a beautiful singing voice and could reportedly sing any hymn ever written. She also showed herself to be all-knowing. One Sunday, the Bells hosted a lunch for 2 local ministers, and one of the ghosts said that she had missed one of their sermons. Kate spoke up and recited the entire sermon, word for word, as confirmed by the minister who was sitting there. Kate then recited the other minister's sermon word for word, even though the churches were 13 miles apart and the services had occurred at the same time.
I don't know about all this, girl. This sounds like a lot of folklore, and I don't know if we're leading into Evermore.
Guests would also be greeted by Kate as they approached, and she would call out their name and facts about them which no one knew because they were strangers to the area. So somebody would be like walking up the path and be like, "Oh, it's Paul. You're from welcome to the Bell Farm."
You use your socks as cum rags. Welcome.
Probably.
Could you imagine? You just walk up into this place.
Well, actually, she would do that. she would like gossip with people.
As she fucking should.
She'd be like, "Dear Lucy, did you hear about Paul? He's cheating on his wife with one of the farmhands."
Girl, but could you imagine the kind of like also power this could give you if you lived in the house? You could walk up to anyone and be like, "So Kate told me that so-and-so is going..." It could very much be used to your advantage.
It was very, like, it was very much that. It was like, "I don't believe you." And then it would be like, "Well, she said that, well, Paul, they said that your farmhand isn't only plowing your cornfields, if you know what I'm saying."
But you could make up shit too. Like, once you have that...
But if you make something up and it's, like, if I made up something about you, like, how likely it is to be true?
What I'm saying is, once, like, the true stuff is established and people trust
what
you...
you're saying is then you can make anything up.
Exactly.
I got you.
Once people establish it and trust you, you could make all sorts of shit up, really.
Well, in addition to being all-knowing, she also proved herself to be an excellent mimic. John Johnston, the son of James and Jane, challenged her to tell him what his Dutch step-grandmother would say to the slaves back on their farm in North Carolina when they had done something wrong. Instantaneously, Kate replied in a perfect imitation Dutch accent, "Hut tut, what has happened now?"
Okay.
And that is exactly what she said. And he said that it was as if his Dutch step-grandmother was speaking to him. That's how good it was.
That's kind of spooky. Okay, that's kind of spooky.
On another occasion, a man visiting from England was shocked to hear Kate speak in his mother's voice, worrying about him. He returned to England and wrote a letter to the Bells stating that on that very day that he was visiting them, his mother heard his voice in her own home in England talking about her.
I don't like that. That's weird. Okay, something's going on here. I don't fully know what's going on yet. So let's keep listening.
One day, a group of Shakers were riding up the Bell's driveway. Shakers were like Quakers, but like more like they'd shake and roll around.
Oh, they had Parkinson's.
I don't know if that's a joke you're allowed to make.
Are we not allowed? Is the Parkinson's community going to come at me?
I don't know.
Are we done? Mike? Damn it, I was supposed to save that for year 2.
Jesus. I didn't think this would be the episode where you got canceled.
Right? The Parkinson's community is strong.
Now, John Sr. and Lucy were very kind and generous people. They never charged their visitors when they came to see about the witch, and they always provided them with meals and sleeping arrangements. Because, like, the farms are, like, miles apart. So, like, you travel days to get here. It's like, oh, stay the night, like, have dinner with us, and then you can go in the morning.
Okay.
Now, on this particular day, who knows what was going on, but Lucy complained under her breath about all the food she'd have to cook for this large religious group that was coming.
Oh, I'd be pissed too.
Yeah.
Bring your own dinner. The fuck?
So she said, like, oh, shit. Like, this is going to be so much bread I have to bake or something.
Right, you got this fucking ghost in your house.
But then she started to hear the voice of the slave boy who watched the dogs call the dogs, followed by howls and barks. She ran to the door and watched as the dogs charged at the Shakers at the boy's commands and drove the group away. She looked everywhere but could not find the boy until later that day when he told her he was nowhere near the house. He was working a field on the other side of the property. Remember, Kate seemed to really like Lucy, so she probably heard this and did this to get the...
Ooh, she's got homegirl's back. She said, okay, let me do something real quick. Okay.
So talking about the visitors to the Bell family farm would be incomplete without talking about their most famous visitor.
Herpes.
No.
Oh.
Worse. Andrew Jackson, noted military general, future president, and racist extraordinaire.
Ooh. Oh, okay. I didn't know he was racist.
The architect of the Trail of Tears himself.
Oh, I didn't know all of that. Yeah, he is worse than herpes then.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, how did a future president end up here? Well, John Jr., Drury, and Jesse Bell all served under Jackson at the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. and Jackson actually owned property nearby. Hearing of the goings-on and of the masses of people descending on the Bell home, old Andy set off with men from his farm and a wagon full of supplies. As they approached the Bell property, the horses stopped moving and the wagon would budge no further. The men got out of the wagon and made an inspection to see if they were stuck in mud or maybe caught on a rock, but found the wagon was sitting on a perfectly flat, dry road, and there was no reason for it to not move. All of the men then got behind the wagon and tried to push it, to no effect. They did so multiple times before Jackson exclaimed, "By the eternal, boys, this must be the Bell Witch!"
Okay.
At that, Kate's voice spoke, saying, "You may proceed, General. I will see you later."
Ooh, girl, that sounds like a threat.
That night, Jackson dined with the Bells, and his men set up tents in the yard, but nothing supernatural happened. After a few hours, one of Jackson's men boasted that he was a witch tamer, and that the witch was quiet because she was frightened of him and his pistol loaded with a silver bullet, which would kill her, and he certainly would if he saw her.
Girl, how naive.
No sooner did he say this than he was slapped hard across the face by an unseen force before being thrashed and jerked around as the witch beat him senseless before throwing him out the door of the home.
I mean, he was on her turf talking shit. I'm on her side on that one.
She then declared, "I found one fraud in your midst, General, and tomorrow I will reveal another to you."
Ooh, girl.
Jackson was eager to stay, but his men prevailed on him to leave before breakfast.
I would have stayed. It sounds like they're too eager to leave. It sounds like they're all
I bet you every one of those guys did something and they went, "Oh shit, I'm the fraud."
Exactly. They were scared. They were fucking scared, bitch.
Now, if that wasn't spooky enough, Kate wasn't always alone with the Bells. Sometimes she was joined by a family of other ghosts who took up residence in the Bell home and took turns tormenting the family with her.
Jesus. That's awful.
Now, these are some funny names too.
Alright, I'm ready for it.
So, let's try and get through this together.
Okay.
Black Dog, Mathematics, Cypocryphy, and Jerusalem.
I like Cypocryphy. That's a good name.
I'm sorry, mathematics gets me every time.
That's very you-coded.
It just sounds like, "What's your name?" Mathematics.
It does. It sounds like a nervous British schoolboy.
Black Dog was the leader and spoke with a harsh feminine voice. Mathematics and Cypocryphy both had more delicate female voices, and Jerusalem spoke with a male voice. Now, Black Dog was the leader, and could be heard assigning which of the spirits were to torment the family when.
They were taking shifts.
This
is organized.
But worst of all would be when they would say, "Let's have a drink," and begin to sing dirty drinking songs as the entire house filled with the stench of whiskey.
Okay, that's iconic. Low-key iconic. I need to be there. Is this place still standing?
We'll get to that at the end.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, at one point, it would be like, "We got into old so-and-so's mash. We're having a party." And all the Bells are like, we have to plow a field at 6 a.m.
I'd be so sick. Oh my god.
Now, the phenomena didn't only center on the Bells. Their slave Dean, who I mentioned earlier, was also targeted. Now, earlier we discussed his being followed by the large black dog on his walk home each night. Now, his wife, who, not to make this confusing, was also called Kate.
Oh, God.
Was concerned for her husband and made him a witch ball to protect him. Okay. Now, a witch ball is a ball made of rolled up hair and herbs sealed with beeswax, and it was meant to ward off evil.
Okay.
One night, as Dean walked home with the wish ball, Kate manifested before him and demanded the charm, and Dean was so frightened he gave it to her, and he watched as it burst into flames in her hand. Kate, his wife, made him another one after consulting a load of Native American elder on what plants and herbs would work best, and Dean refused to part with this ball. One night, as he was walking home, the black dog leapt out in front of him, and in Kate's voice said she'd turn him into a mule and ride him to hell to have breakfast. Dean was a fairly small man, but was super strong and was great with an axe. It was said that if they put him on one side of a tree and two men on the other side of the tree, he would get through it faster.
Okay, you better go, Dean. You better work.
He was so frightened, he swung the axe and hit the dog square in the forehead and split its head in two. The dog never got close to him again, but he would still see it watching him, now with two heads.
Okay, that's spooky. I like that story. That's a good story. I like that. Ooh.
Now, Kate rarely ever presented a physical form, but she did once shake hands with Calvin Johnston, the younger son of James and Jane. And once, when she appeared physically, she was nearly caught by William Porter. Porter was a bachelor farmer who often stopped by the Bell farm and would talk with Kate long times, and he had absolutely no fear of her.
Okay.
One winter's night, he was in bed at the Bells because, remember, this is a time when you lived a day's drive from anyone else.
Okay.
So
yeah.
you'd come to visit and be like, oh, stay for dinner. Well, it gets dark early. Well, stay the night.
Right. That makes sense.
And he's laying in bed when he felt the covers pulled off of him and heard Kate's voice. I've come to spend the night with you and keep you warm.
Oh, girl. He was excited.
Porter replied she could only get into bed if she promised to behave herself. She watched as the form of a person wrapped itself in the blankets and pulled most of them off of him, and he realized he had a pretty prime chance here. He leapt up and grabbed the figure wrapped in the blankets and began to carry it to the fireplace to throw it in. He was gonna burn that witch!
Girl, that's crazy.
But as he walked, the bundle grew heavier and heavier with every passing second until the room filled with the most god-awful stench until he couldn't take it anymore. And he fled from the room to catch his breath. He immediately turned around to see the blankets lying in a heap on the floor and no one in the room, even though he was blocking the only exit.
I really thought they were going to plow. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought she was going to crawl into bed and they were going to plow.
I kind of set that up with, she rarely had physical form, but she did shake hands once. That was the most intimacy she ever gave someone.
Rough.
Kind of like my parents.
Oh, okay. It's that kind of part.
While all of this was going on, Kate continued focusing her torture on old Jack and Betsy. As I mentioned before, of all the children, Betsy was beat and terrorized by Kate the most. Very early on in the haunting, John Sr. and Lucy sent her to the Johnsons to spend the night to save her from Kate. In the middle of the night, Kate spoke to Betsy and her best friend Parthenia Johnston, saying, I will let you sleep tonight, but no, I will always come to find you. The torment on Betsy grew as she began dating her classmate, Joshua Gardner. Kate would follow them wherever they went and would harass them, whether they met in the Bell house, at school, in town, walking along the river, or meeting in one of the caves along it. Whenever Betsy or anyone else in the Bell house would bring up Joshua, Kate would start loudly cursing and saying, You will have nothing but heartbreak if you marry Gardner, and future generations will know it.
She was just looking out, you know?
Regardless, Betsy and Joshua became engaged, much to the delight of everyone in the community. except their former teacher, Professor Richard Powell, who had made known his intention of wanting to propose to Betsy when she was 11.
Not the professor.
When she was 11, he told her parents, "I want to marry your daughter one day."
Predator. Groomer. Canceled.
Also not very pleased by this engagement was Kate, who doubled down on Betsy, harassing her all the more. And as for old Jack, Kate had a special contempt. One of her earliest explanations for who she was and what she wanted was that she was here to torment old Jack Bell to death.
Oh.
She heaped abuse upon him, calling him wicked, despicable, evil, shouting accusations at him which were so terrible that the Bell family never repeated them.
Oh.
It was during this time that, between the hauntings, like with all the hauntings going on, that John Sr. was excommunicated from the Red River Baptist Church for charging an exceptionally high interest on a loan to Benjamin Batts, brother-in-law of Kate Batts, dating back to 1816.
Well, I don't see how that's any of the church's business.
The church was kind of like the municipal... Like, that was the only, government structure they had. John Sr. was nearing the age of 70, and Kate's constant abuse and beating was wearing him down. By late 1820, John Sr. was confined to the house because Kate would rip his shoes off of his feet anytime he tried to walk and would slap him senseless, even causing seizures. In December 1820, the family woke up one morning to find John Sr. had not risen to make them breakfast as he usually did, and found him in bed too weak to get up, and called a local doctor who prescribed medicines to help him recover, and he was nursed devotedly by his son John Jr. On the morning of December 20th, John Sr. slipped into a coma. The family ran to the cabinet where his medicines were kept and found them all gone, replaced by a strange bottle filled with a smoky, dark liquid. They gave a few drops to one of the house cats, who immediately dropped and died a short time later. Kate began cackling and cried out, "I gave old Jack a big old dose of that last night and fixed him." John Bell Sr. died later that morning. His funeral was held a few days later and was the largest funeral in Tennessee up until that time, with 3 ministers coming to officiate. At the graveside, Kate's disembodied voice could be heard cackling and singing dirty drinking songs until after all of the mourners had departed.
That's quite the story. Could you imagine,
being so hated by a ghost that she actually kills you?
Right, but I'm also just trying to think of, having, this ghost so pronounced, so present, and having this much evidence of the paranormal, and, people aren't really talking about it, to this day. If this was actually the tea and the bop, I feel like people would be talking about it more. Is Zach Baggins on this shit?
Yes.
Sam and Colby?
I think so.
Are the dolls and the divas talking about this?
We gotta check about Sam and Colby. Zach Baggins did go.
Okay.
With John Sr. dead, Kate remained with the Bells throughout the next spring, harassing Betsy and Joshua. The Monday after Easter, Betsy met Joshua by the river and called off their engagement. She stated that Kate had killed her father and she didn't want her to do the same to him. Joshua left the area the next day and would go on to be a successful farmer. After Betsy... Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something?
No, it's all good. Keep going.
After Betsy and Joshua broke up, Kate went to Lucy and told her that she was leaving, but would return in 7 years. True to her word, Kate returned 7 years later and made contact with John Jr., with whom she had lengthy conversations about religion and the future, accurately predicting the Civil War and both World Wars, and promising to return again in 107 years to speak with his most direct descendant.
Bitch, has it been 107 years?
So 107 years later was 1935, and that same year, Dr. Charles Bell, a descendant, published a book about this incident, but never came out publicly as to whether or not the witch made contact with him.
Okay. This is very interesting.
There have been many theories throughout the years as to what Kate the Bell Witch really was. Her conflicting answers make it so that we can never be sure. Her actions and behaviors have been compared to those of trickster spirits or even the jinn of Middle Eastern beliefs. One legend states that John Sr. had bought land off of Kate Batts in a shady deal, and on her deathbed she cursed him and the witch was her ghost. However, the real Kate Batts was actually a niece of Lucy and outlived both John Sr. and Lucy. And as for that whole dispute over the loan which led to John Sr.'s excommunication, that was with a brother of her husband.
Oh, okay.
So, and the dispute over the loan was actually over John Sr. lent him a slave, and he kept the slave a little too long, and so John Sr. tried to charge him interest on the slave. And Kate probably wouldn't have got involved in this because her husband were too poor to afford slaves. Slavery is not right. It is just a fact in this story.
And that's why I'm not commenting or making a joke.
Some say it was a hoax perpetrated either by the Bell children or by the whole family to make money.
Okay.
However, the family made no money off of the haunting and actually probably lost money as they fed everyone who visited the farm.
See, that's what I was going to ask.
And interfered with the day-to-day work of the farm.
Okay.
Because if you have people tromping through your fields, you can't exactly plow them.
I need proof that it was interfering. I need proof of the voices. I need proof.
Well, no, I'm saying the people coming to the farm.
Yeah.
So even if they made it up, they weren't making money off of it. Because A, they weren't charging it. They were feeding everyone. Mm-hmm. And probably their work was getting interrupted.
Right, yeah. No, I was actually going to ask about that, if they were charging people to come see this ghost.
More recently, people have said Kate was a poltergeist, conjured unknowingly by Betsy Bell.
Oh.
Poltergeists are more likely to occur in homes with teenagers, especially teenage girls, which Lucy was, and focus their assaults on the person whose energy feeds them. People have also theorized that this was due to John Sr. abusing her in some way, but this has never been substantiated by evidence and has been denied by the family.
Right, okay.
Another theory is that Kate was summoned by Betsy's teacher, Richard Powell, who was upset because he was in love with her and she was going to marry Joshua Gardner. He was noted in the area for studying the occult and the paranormal and was seen often reading strange ancient texts. Is it possible he summoned Kate to torment Betsy and her family to weaken them enough to force her to break off her attachment to Joshua?
Well, wasn't this happening long before Joshua?
No, concurrently. Betsy and Joshua were childhood friends.
Oh, okay.
They grew up together, they went to school together, and it was
childhood friend. Okay.
They were childhood sweethearts.
That's actually really sweet.
If only Kate hadn't made them break up.
Yeah.
Now, Lucy Bell lived the rest of her life on the Bell family property and is buried there next to her husband. Her descendants went on to become prominent citizens in the state of Tennessee, several who going on to work for the government of that state.
Okay, that's cool.
And there are still Bells and Bell descendants living in Tennessee, in Kentucky, in Mississippi, and in the whole surrounding area.
Period. Lots of bells, lots of bells.
Betsy Bell eventually married a local politician and moved away. She and her husband had some success before losing their money in a bad investment and living the rest of their lives in poverty and ill health. Her ex-fiancé, Joshua Gardner, actually petitioned the state for a small pension for her to live off of after her husband's death. She lived the rest of her life in fear of Kate returning, refusing to speak of her with anyone outside the immediate family, and refusing to sleep alone until she died in her 90s.
I'd be scarred too. That shit'll scar you.
Did I mention who she married? She married Professor Richard Powell.
No, she fucking didn't.
Yes, she did.
That stupid bitch.
Yes, she did.
Stupid girl.
Now, the property where the Bell house sat in the private family cemetery is now private property, and it's owned by a private trust, so you can't really go and visit it. Mm-hmm. But what you can visit is near the Bell Witch Cave, which is a cave nearby on the original tract of land by the Red River, and it was once a spot where Betsy and Joshua used to meet and play as children and later courted. Remember I mentioned that the witch would fall into the cave?
Oh, okay, the Bell Witch Cave.
It is now considered to be a place where the Bell Witch resides. During the hauntings, Betsy and some other kids were exploring when one boy got his head stuck between two rocks. The other children frantically tried to free him with no success. Kate didn't appear, but she manifested, and her voice cried out, "I'll get him out," and gently lifted him out and gently set him back on the ground before reaming the children a new asshole on why they should not be exploring a cave.
She's maternal. Get into it.
On another occasion, later on, like in the 1900s, a girl played hooky, and she took a lamp into the cave to explore, and the lamp kept blowing out. Every time she relit it, it would blow out even though there was no breeze. So finally, she just turned around and left. And as she left, she found an open can of pork and beans and a bag of marshmallows. That night, she heard on the radio that law enforcement found 2 escaped fugitives hiding in the back of the cave, and she attributes the Bell Witch to having saved her.
Okay, so is the Bell Witch good or is she bad? Like, what are we doing, girl?
The cave is noted for mechanical malfunctions to camera, photos developing with shadows of people showing up on the pictures, even though no one was standing in it. People have also been reported being stuck in place like Andrew Jackson's wagon, or feeling overcome by a sense of foreboding in the caves. And if you do happen to visit the Bell Witch Cave, make sure you pay Kate the respect she deserves, because if not, she's been known to slap you if you don't take it seriously.
What if you're into slapping? What if you're into that?
No, you said, is she a good entity or is she a bad entity?
Yeah.
I think she's a trickster spirit. And along with that, I don't think there is a good or a bad. With that, I just think she's doing what she does. And she doesn't really have any sort of moral compass, or at least a moral compass that we would recognize and identify with.
Okay, I could see that. I could see her very much being a trickster spirit. Maybe even one of the Fae, maybe.
Yeah, it's very Fae, very Jinn-like. And this was all Native American land, and Native American stories are very rich in their tales of trickster spirits.
Right.
Could be something like
Very
that.
that.
It could have just been a poltergeist. It could have been a spirit that traveled with them from... Oh, I forgot to mention earlier. At one point, the hauntings did get so bad that the family discussed leaving and even moving back to North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And as they discussed this, Kate manifested and said, "Wherever you go, I will follow."
Right, if the spirit's that strong and it's like talking to you that much, it's not confined by Tennessee, girl. She's gonna follow you wherever you go.
No, I mean, she was following them around.
Right, like, girl, you can go wherever you want at that point. She's still gonna follow.
I mean, she followed Betsy the Johnstons. She was obviously following people around town to get the good goss.
Right.
She was apparently going to England.
She's a working girl on the go.
Right?
Honestly, she should unionize. Get her benefits. Get her those health benefits.
What are your thoughts, Paul?
My thoughts on the Bell Witch? I think... I don't know if I believe it or not. Because it's all too, like... It's honestly giving a little bit fairy tale to me. These tall stories, and for a ghost to communicate that much... I don't know. I feel like if this... I don't know. If it were to happen now... I guess what I'm getting at is maybe back in the day, like, where there were smaller communities, like, the spirits would be more willing, but I guess now maybe the spirits know that there's, like, if that were to happen now, it would, like, blow up and, like, be a much bigger thing than it was back in the day. But at the same time, it's just such a fantastical fairy tale-esque story. Like, it's so...
What I will say,
Yes.
my 2 cents. I do think Kate the Bell Witch was a real phenomena, a real entity that haunted the bells and did terrorize this community. I do think a lot of the stories that I presented today are folklore, though.
Yeah.
This is actually America's first folk tale.
Oh, really?
Where it grew out of something. Because it wasn't until much later that you had John Hancock signed his name so big on the Declaration of Independence so the King of England could read his name without his glasses on. Or George Washington once chopped down his father's cherry tree and said, "Father, I cannot tell a lie."
Right.
That didn't come till later on in the 1800s. This was like the first folk tale. But folk tales have to start somewhere with some grain of truth. And so I think there was a spirit who chose to go by the name Kate, who did haunt this family, and I do think that she was slapping and beating the shit out of them, and that she probably was talking to them at times, like Jeff the Mongoose. But do I think that she was doing like this, going over to England and coming back, or the sermon thing, or the whole story about Andy Jackson? A lot of historians say that's probably a lot of hooey, because 4 years or 3 years after, well, I guess he probably came in like 1819, and 5 years later he ran for president in a hugely contested presidential race. And why did nobody say, "Well, you got beat by the Bell Witch"?
Very that. Okay.
So I think it's true. I think a lot of what we know about it today is probably folklore, but it's one of those stories that honestly, I believe in it just because I think it's fun to believe in.
Yeah.
And I really do want to go to the Bell Witch Cave, because one podcast I listened to actually said that a medium visited there, and she found that it's a vortex. And actually on the hill above, there's a bunch of Native American burial mounds. And she basically found out through communication with the spirits, because a lot of people thought, oh, maybe the Native American shamans opened up a vortex here because they were buried nearby, and she figured out, no, they buried their dead here because the vortex was there.
Oh,
so like it's an ancient vortex.
Okay.
So I definitely want to go at some point.
Real quick, now that you say the Jeff the Mongoose thing, this story really is giving Jeff the Mongoose.
My name's Jeff.
Very that. It's giving Jeff the Mongoose, but like America's version of Jeff the Mongoose. No, it's a good story though. Like, it's a fun story. Well, not really a fun story because apparently.
I mean, for us,
it's fun because we're not getting tormented by ghosts.
we weren't killed by a dark, smoky liquid that also killed a cat.
Poor kitty, honestly.
I would like it to be noted, however, Kate the Bell Witch did not kill that cat. The bells killed the cat.
Right, she just killed her dad. And give and take.
Honestly, I don't know what John Bell did to deserve that. I don't know whether it's rumor or whether it's proven, but I heard everything that I heard. There are stories of him killing a man back in North Carolina. Some people said that it's been proven. Other people said that it was a rumor.
Honestly, to me, it sounds like John, right?
John Sr., yeah.
Yeah, he probably had some sort of illness that wasn't explained at that point, that they didn't know what it was.
So a lot of people can conjecture, theorize.
Yeah,
that
theorize.
He has had a neurological disease.
Yeah.
That's actually called Bell's palsy. Not after him, believe it or not, but after a Scottish doctor named Bell who discovered it.
That's kind of ironic.
It's super. I had to look into it to see, like, are they related? Because also one of his descendants was a neurologist, Dr. Charles Bell, that I talked about.
Right.
But a lot of people say because a lot of those symptoms of seizures, convulsions, fatigue, loss of the control of the mouth are all symptoms of that.
Okay.
But also you have stories of the children being beat and like Lucy Bell being covered in bruises and slap marks.
I mean, this is gonna sound really dark, and this is a really...
What if they were abusing her?
Yeah.
But the family said no, that's not it. And their friends and family said that's not it either.
Just because the family says that's not it,
But they went back and they interviewed witnesses later on too.
I mean, how much, like, who are these witnesses? Like, neighbors? You said they're, like, more than a day's way away. Like...
Well, some of the neighbors, not all of the neighbors.
Mm-hmm. But still, like, they don't see everything behind closed doors.
But how would they see somebody get slapped across the face?
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that.
James
that's
Johnston, he got slapped across the face by an invisible force.
That's true. That's true, too.
And now, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. So, it is noted that in all the telling of the stories that most of the time, whenever somebody was slapped, it was in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But when it only takes a couple seconds to light a match and light a candle.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And by the time that happened, nobody could have gotten out of the room.
That's true. Okay, I see what you're saying.
So a lot of people say like, "Oh yeah, it was in the dark," and I tried, like the story with William Porter. Mm-hmm. He ran out of the only door, and when he turned around, no one was in the room.
Right. Okay, that's crazy.
What did she do? Shoot up the chimney? She's still a witch.
Right. That's unexplainable. That's unexplainable stuff. I feel like there's parts of this story that we're just not gonna know, and that there's something haunting there, and we don't fully know what it is.
No. So, Paul.
Yeah?
I will have one question for you.
What's the question?
Smash or pass? Kate the Bell Witch.
Oh my god.
Now, before you answer, I know you're wondering. Because there was only 2 times she made physical contact. And one of them she was in a blanket. But Calvin Johnston, who shook hands with her, said that it was a delicate and velvety hand.
Girl, we're gonna have to smash. She sounds like a freaky girl.
I'm gonna smash her just because she said women's empowerment. They weren't even talking women's suffrage yet, and she said, "Give me the right to vote."
I'm trying to get in that velvet.
Not the velvet.
Give me that velvet.
I don't know if you can physically manifest accept your hand, but give me a velvety hand job.
Why not? Isn't there a song? Black Velvet. It's a song, right?
It's not about a hand job, though, I don't think.
Probably not, but you know. Same thing. Why not? I'm about to get in that velvet. Kate, hit me up.
I hope you enjoy this story as much as I did.
I like this story. It was a good story. This was a good one.
I had so much fun researching it. I had so much telling it. It's one of my favorite paranormal stories.
It's a good one.
I also really enjoyed it because being somebody who does listen to other paranormal podcasts, I really enjoyed going down memory lane and listening to other podcasts who have done it and going back and listening to their episodes. And one that I listened to, and That's Why We Drink, it was their 3rd episode, which I've not listened to since like 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So going back 5 years.
That's a long time.
And it came out in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So like going back, I was like, whoa.
That's crazy. But you know, one thing they probably didn't cover about this topic is the doorbell witch. Ding dong!
You know what? I can't wait till we go to the Bell Witch Cave. I'm adding it to our list of places we have to visit. Even if we can't investigate there.
Yeah,
I don't think we have the star power for that. I want to see it. But I can just imagine you making a doorbell witch thing. And I'm sure you're going to stop making that joke after Kate slaps you.
Let's go, Kate. Maybe I like being slapped. Kate, hit my line. Let's go.
Do you have anything else for the greater good this episode, Paul?
Not right now. Now, if this was a really good story and I really enjoyed this episode, you did a great job.
Thank you. And I was really glad to be able to tell a spooky story that didn't end with, and none of it happened.
Right. Some tea. Getting down to the tea, the real shit.
So, please tell us what you think. If you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or anywhere else where you can listen to this audibly, please click in the bio below and hit the text us button, and you can text us and we can read your comments there. Unfortunately, we cannot reply, but hopefully we can communicate with you in another way. If you're watching this on YouTube and you would like to text us, just open up that podcast app, click on in our bio, and text us. You can also communicate with us through our email at cripsandcorks@gmail.com. You can talk to us there about this episode, about story suggestions, or about your personal story so we can start doing listener episodes. Please also interact with us on all of our social media on Facebook and Twitter at Crips and Corks, or on Instagram and TikTok at Crips and Corks Pod. Paul, where can they find you?
You can find me at my personal Instagram and TikTok at Paul Ember, Paulember. And as usual, y'all, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno.
And if you'd like to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter and on on Instagram and on TikTok at The Real Deej Powers. Or if you want to write me a love letter, you can address it to the Bell Family Farm in Adams County, Tennessee, courtesy of Kate not Kate Batts the Bell Witch, you dummy.
Get into it.
And that's all she wrote. So
Right.
until next time, guys, remember, it is a true act of love if somebody manifests fresh oranges out of thin air for you. And remember to keep your crips tight.
And your corks loose. Bye!
By the Eternal, it's the Bell Witch!
Get into that.